as constructed was filed with the planning board, and whereas there is no record that the covenant was released, but the lots shown on said plan have been sold, and whereas on August 6, 2013, the Danvers Board of Selectmen executed an order of taking of the Toomey Street extension, laying out and accepting said way as a public way, said order of taking being duly signed and recorded in the Essex South Registry of Deeds at Book 32815, page 81. Therefore, the covenant for the subdivision entitled Cluster Development, Section Roman 15, Definitive Subdivision Plan, Toomey Street Extension, Lots 1 through 6, is hereby released. Majority of the Planning Board of the Town of Danvers, Massachusetts.
The motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tori. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right.
Do we need to read the?
I don't think that's necessary.
No.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
All right, the next item on the agenda, 17 Pope's Lane, request for site plan review pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaws submitted by 17 Pope's Lane, Danvers LLC, William Neal, manager for property in the Highway Corridor Zone, zoning district. The applicant proposes a new building and site modifications associated with the contractor's yard, assessors map 40, lot 16.
Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, 17 Pope's Lane, Danvers LLC. With me tonight is William Neal, the manager of the LLC. Also with me tonight is Jay Polakowitz from Hancock Associates, the project engineer, and we are requesting site plan review for a new building proposed to be constructed on the property located at 17 Pope's Lane. This property is located in the Highway Corridor Zone. Back in 2008, the Board of Appeals granted zoning relief to allow what is an undersized lot to be utilized for a contractor's yard. This board, the Planning Board, issued the necessary relief also in 2008, as well as site plan approval for the contractor's yard, and since that time the applicant has been utilizing the property as a contractor's yard. On the site currently, there are 3 structures. We have a wooden shed, we have a metal shed, and we also have what was originally constructed back about 1960, a single-family home. Those 3 buildings have been used for the contractor's yard business since 2008. There is a lot of outdoor storage for those of you who have gone by and taken a look at it. That is also part of the contractor's yard business. The applicant is proposing to, I would say, dramatically clean up the site. The first order of business is raising the 3 buildings that are there, and secondly, constructing on the site a fully conforming building for use as indoor storage for the contractor's yard. This building is fully conforming, which is somewhat difficult on an undersized lot to conform to the setback requirements of the Highway Corridor Zone, but it has been designed to do just that. And third, there will be a neat, organized outdoor construction yard area that's designated on the plan. It will have a gravel area and provide exterior storage for the larger equipment, which is basically the definition of the contractor's yard under the zoning bylaw. The result is going to be eliminating 3 buildings that are currently non-conforming and replacing those 3 non-conforming buildings with a fully conforming building. We will have a much more organized and neat site. We'll have adequate parking and some new landscaping. Again, the site as designed is fully conforming, both relative to building itself, utilities, drainage, and Jay will go into that in a minute. We have provided you with a full site plan package. We need very few waivers. Those waivers are associated just with technical, I'll say, compilation of the plan set, but all of the required information is provided. You have a lighting plan. You also have even the building colors submitted with the application. So at this point, I will turn it over to Jay to walk you through the plan.
Good evening. My name's Jay Plackowitz with Hancock Associates. I'm one of the engineers on the project. Josh, do you mind going to the next sheet?
Yes. Yep, one sec. Just be in front of Funny, one sec.
So,
Sorry,
back one.
I don't know why it's going down. One sec. C4.
C6, please.
Sorry.
Thank you. So this is the proposed condition. We are proposing a 118-foot by 30-foot steel building. It'll have 5 garage bays, 22 feet tall at the peak. We're proposing a wraparound driveway that'll be bituminous concrete. There'll be parking areas in the bituminous area. Out in front, we will have a subsurface system of chambers. These chambers will collect roof water and site runoff via catch basins. These chambers have been sized to cut down on peak rates in every storm event, up to and including the 100-year storm event. It meets the Town of Danvers standards as well as state standards. We're proposing new utility connections. That exterior storage yard is kind of where you can see the thermostat there, but in the southwest portion of the property, it'll be crushed stone. We'll bring in new crushed stone anywhere that grading is proposed. And then along the bituminous concrete driveway will be a modular block wall, and this will help level off the site. And can we go to the next sheet, please? Thank you. We're proposing landscaping along the sidelines and along the frontage of the property. This landscaping as proposed is grasses out front and then arborvitaes between the neighboring yards. And as Nancy mentioned, the goal of this project is to really clean up the site, bring a lot of the exterior storage inside, while still maintaining some exterior storage. Thank you.
We have received department comments from the engineering department. We have reviewed those. We received those towards the end of last week, and we have no issues complying and satisfying each and every one of those. They're mostly technical. A lot of those are items that will be done in the normal course of construction and receipt of various other utility type of connection permits, but we have no issues with any of the comments from the engineering department, and we would certainly take a condition of approval, the satisfaction of those comments. I think that is it. The only other item I will point out is the abutter to Plan Top, which is actually the north, which is currently a single-family home. That property is under agreement, and the applicant and purchaser of that property actually has pending before the Board of Appeals an application to do a very similar use to this. It's an office type of use for a construction business. So that property is being converted as well into a use that is permitted in the highway corridor zone, which, as you know, residential is not. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from the board. We'll start with Tim.
Yeah, when you said that the outdoor storage area was where the thermostat is, does that mean it goes into the corner here fully?
We have a pointer. It's unfortunate. We have to take this with me. This is where it gets tricky. All right. Unfortunately, we do have this thermostat in the way, but the outdoor storage area, you see it marked on your plan. You've got a note here on the plan. The outdoor storage area is all in this section here up to the edge of the travelway.
And what exactly will be stored there?
Heavy equipment.
Such as?
Oh, backhoes, trucks, dump truck, excavator, contractor yard equipment. That's typically stored outside.
Got it. All right, no other questions for now.
All right, Jean, questions?
Can you talk about the current operations, and is that going to remain the same? Like the hours, et cetera?
Yes, Mr. Neal has been operating at this site since 2008, and there won't be any change in his operations, other than they will be neater.
What are the hours?
7 to 3.
Okay.
The hours are 7 to 3, Monday through Saturday.
All right. Thanks.
Identify yourself for the
Oh,
record.
my name is William Neal, owner, 17 Popes Lane.
Thank you. Any other questions, Jean?
No, that's it.
All right, Tori, questions?
I have no questions.
Lou?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. And so just sort of following up with the, I guess the question, I guess in terms of the use of the property, so it would be, so the use is going to be in essence the same as what has been before.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
The only thing, I would just wanted to make just a note that in the, and maybe this was just a typographical, but in the stormwater report, it referenced construction of a self-storage facility. And so I just wanted, was that just a typo or?
That's a typo.
Okay, got it, okay. And so, okay, that's good to know. And in terms of the sort of the, traffic circulation and all, I know that there is a lot going on in Pope's Lane area. Is there going to be, is there any need for any additional, traffic markings or anything of that nature because of the, because of what's sort of taking place in the whole area as well as what you're doing here?
So the use is going to remain the same. Currently, there's no markings, but if we need to put a stop sign or something at the driveway entrances, that's something we can do. The way that the driveway is set up is it is supposed to be circular. You enter in the south and then you exit out the north. We could add a stop sign on the exit if you deem it necessary.
Okay. I mean, would that be, I guess the question is, would that make it, would it be helpful to add additional signage or stop signs or that nature just because of just sort of the Pope's Lane seems like there's more activity going on there now?
We certainly could. The applicant has been operating here for a long time. He only has 4 employees. They're not there at the same time. They're all very familiar with the site. But at the exit driveway, which you say is at the north, come in at the south and you exit at the north, we would certainly take a condition that we put a stop sign. It probably makes sense to do that.
Okay, so a stop sign at the north and
Yes, at the north exit.
at the north exit?
Mhm.
Okay, great. Okay. I have no further questions.
I just had a few questions. So the gray shading, is that going to be all stone? Back stone?
Yeah, I'll use the pointer. So this area will be bituminous concrete. This area over here will be that 3/4 inch crushed stone. We're going to match what's there existing. Yeah, so the bituminous concrete, it's all pitched. You can't see it on this plan, but there are catch basins here and here, and it's all pitching towards those catch basins, which will then make its way over to the infiltration chambers.
So we're going to put a little bit of a lawn area in the front as it bounds the street?
Yeah, so this will be lawn or mulch. We can't do plantings on top of the chamber system. It'll clog it. But we have a little bit of landscaping over here, a little bit of landscaping up here, and then this landscaped area.
And as far as the circulation, where are the access doors? So you're coming in at the top of the plan and exiting the bottom of the plan?
So there will be 5 garage bays along here. There's lighting on top of each bay, and then you'll come in this way and out this way.
So you come in from the bottom, go on the top, out the
Yeah.
top?
Yeah.
Okay. And fencing around the site?
So there is fencing currently over here. There's a stone wall, concrete wall that runs along here. There is not fencing along this property line or half of this one.
Okay. Is that going to be improved upon, or is that just going to be the existing fencing is going to remain?
So there'll be landscaping over here, which will, be for screening. Same with over here. This fence that's up here is a newer vinyl fence. It was just relocated to the property line a couple weeks ago. So it is already a nice fence.
And no outdoor audio over there? Keep it quiet.
No.
And I didn't get the hours. Again, I don't think we heard them for the record.
The hours are 7 to 3.
7 to 3, and that's 5 days a week, 6 days a week?
6 days a week, not Sunday.
Okay.
No Sundays.
And is there going to be any deliveries of material or just strictly vehicles? Just vehicles. Okay. All right. This is a public hearing, so I'd open up to the audience. If you would like to comment, if you could please approach the mic and identify yourself. Mr. Bradstreet?
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Are we aware of any complaint, I know this is a highway corridor, are we aware of any complaints from the neighbors, noise or what have you?
I'd have to ask staff that.
I am not aware of any complaints from the public or abutters.
Did we get any, we sent out about a notice to, there are residential neighbors to, I guess, the
North.
north.
No, did not receive any public comment.
So that means that the good conditions now will continue to be gooder or better as far as
Sounds like
noise.
they're gonna be a lot cleaner, or at least storing stuff inside as opposed to perhaps outside more, and having several buildings and putting it all in one.
Yes. I don't live up there, but my concern was for the folks who do live in the area.
Hmm?
If they're not bothered, then they won't be bothered even more. Thank you.
All right.
Could I actually ask one follow-up question to that?
Sure, Tim has a follow-up.
Yeah, so you mentioned the neighbor to the north, the south 23 Pope's Lane. Am I right that this new outdoor storage area, there's trees there right now, is that correct?
In the general area of the outdoor storage, are there trees there now?
Not on my property, on the existing properties.
Not on the applicant's property.
So the trees are on 23 Pope's Lane?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. Thanks.
Could you just quickly go over the lighting record, lighting plan, just for the record, please?
Sure. Do you mind just pulling that up?
Oh, was it in there? Oh.
So this is a photometric plan prepared by others. But so we're proposing a ground-facing light over each garage bay. They're facing down, and then two just on the back corners of the property. Again, just facing down. Those are more for security. The ones in front of the garage doors are being able to see what you're doing when you're pulling in and out of the garage. There'll be 0-foot candles at all the property lines. In addition, this wall that surrounds the building will provide protection from any light going to the neighbors. And we have a line of arborvitaes here and here, again, which will protect the neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? One additional question in the back, sir. If you would, please come to the mic.
Again, Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I know it's come up before for directional lighting down to facilitate the observation. We're not concerned with We shouldn't be concerned with trying to flood the air and make it a bubble of light. All we're doing is lighting for a specific purpose. I know in some areas, the lights are mounted inside a cone, so they only light up a specific area, not everything in sight.
Yeah, the gentleman, I think, from Hancock, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Jay can show you the shine-down lighting fixtures that they're proposing. They're all shine-down fixtures, so it's not going to be, he's showing zero spillage from, I'll let him tell you.
And that's the only thing, it's the spillage into other areas. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? All right, I entertain a motion on this.
Motion to close public hearing?
Oh,
We need that.
it's not a.
Excuse me?
It's not a public hearing. It's a public meeting, so we don't have to close the public hearing.
There's a motion to close the public meeting. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second from Tim. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none? And the motion from
Sure.
Lou.
Yep, will do. Okay, so we have site plan review, 17 Popes Lane, date of application, June 15th, 2023, date of hearing, July 25th, 2023, date of decision, July 25th, 2023. The Danvers Planning Board finds the site plan submitted by 17 Popes Lane Danvers LLC, William Neal, manager, for property at 17 Popes Lane, Assessors Map 40, Lot 16, to be in substantial compliance with the criteria and regulations adopted by the town. Details of the plan review can be found on the following plans. Permit site plan, 17 Popes Lane, Danvers, Massachusetts, 01923, prepared by Hancock Associates dated June 12, 2023, revised to June 16, 2023, consisting of 8 sheets. The following submission requirements have been waived. 1, Section 4.3.2, Site Analysis Plan. Site Analysis Plan is entitled Existing Conditions Plan, C2. Section 4.3.2C, all trees over 6 inches in diameter at breast height, DBH, and fully forested areas are not shown on the plan. Section 4.3.2D, a note containing the number and total number of trees with a DBH greater than 6 inches is not shown on the plan. Section 4.3.2E, location and results of soil percolation and water table tests are shown on the site construction plan, C5, and utilities plan, C6. 2, Section 4.3.4, Site Construction Plan, Section 4.3.4D. The dimensions of drives, parking areas, and curb cuts are shown on the Dimensional Regulations Plan, C4. 4.3.4I, a table indicating the amounts of earth material that are to be removed, added, or reused on site in cubic feet is not shown on the plan. 3, Section 4.3.6, Utilities Plan. Section 4.3.6B, the profile of the new water or stormwater pipes are not shown on the utilities plan, C6. 4, Section 4.3.7, Landscape Plan. The landscape plan is entitled the Landscape Loading and Parking Plan, C7. The landscape was not prepared by a registered landscape architect, Section 4.3.7B. The existing vegetative cover to be retained and type of such vegetation in a general manner is not shown on the plan. Section 4.3.7 CI and double I. Existing trees with 6 inches DBH or greater to be retained or removed are not shown on the plan. Section 4.3.7G. The methods for protecting plant materials during construction are not shown on the plan. 5, Section 4.3.8, Off-Street Parking and Loading Plan. The Off-Street Parking and Loading Plan is entitled Landscape Loading and Parking Plan, C7. Section 4.3.8B, Construction Details and Size and Type of Materials for Surface Paving, Drainage Facilities, and Curbing are shown on Details, C8. Administrative. The project is subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant agrees to satisfy all the comments in the Danvers Engineering Division memorandum dated July 18th, 2023. 2, the applicant agrees to install a stop sign at the north exit of the property. 3, if there are any changes on the approved plans, the use or the conditions on premises, planning staff will review. If deemed a major change by staff, the applicant will have to apply for a new application for site plan review. This project is subject to the attached list of general conditions. Any approval of this site plan shall lapse within 3 years from the grant thereof if construction has not begun by such date. Signed, James Sears, Chair.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Next item on the agenda, 152 Endicott Street. Request for a roadway improvement plan and site plan review pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaws submitted by JBM Danvers LCC. I don't know if that's a typo. LLC, I assume. For property in the Commercial 3 zoning district. The applicant proposes to improve an existing way, Chalet Court, to access a new retail, commercial building, and a new hotel. Assessors map 63, lot 14.
It is LLC.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairperson Sears, members of the Danvers Planning Board. My name is Frank Marinelli, for the record, and I'm a land use counsel for Torrington Properties. My involvement is post-filing of the application. And tonight, we commence the site plan review process under Section 4, a very exciting process for the commercial corridor, the C3 zone, and also for the town of Danvers with the improvements that are proposed. As you know, 152 Endicott is a severely blighted site, and we look forward to working with the board to bring about the significant transformation that will result in many improvements to the property and the general area. With me tonight is Pete Doucette. Pete is the construction manager for Torrington Properties. Also here is Greg Michaelitis, who's our engineering consultant, and Bob Clark, who is the project engineer from Allen and Major, and also Jeff Dirk, who is our transportation engineer from VAI. Just by way of background, Torrington is one of the region's premier developers and managers of real estate. They have a broad, diverse class of assets, about over 80 properties, about $800 million in real estate portfolio. So you have an applicant that is completely capable of doing what is proposed this evening. What is proposed and shown on the plans are two uses by right in the site plan review process. There's no special permit involved at all for the uses. We have a 10,000 square foot pad, retail pad, approximate 10,000. Bob will get into it, but that is right at this point committed to Fidelity and would move to this location. And secondly, we have a approximate 15,000, over 15,000 square foot footprint for a 4-story hotel. So the hotel itself would be over 61,000 square feet. At the present time, we do not have a flag for that hotel, but we certainly will keep the board informed through the process as we move through that. Some of the improvements, obviously, the high-grade uses by right. Secondly, sensitivity to the resource area with new stormwater management and treatment that Bob will cover. Third, substantial economic development, probably over $20 million with the hotel when we're all in with site work and so forth, and adding to the commercial tax base of the town. And fourth, tremendous aesthetics. When you see the 27-page project plans that were filed by Allen Major, you see the substantial landscaping, the hundreds of plantings that would be part of the landscape schedule. And we would expect that all property values in the C3 commercial corridor would benefit proximate to the property and the redevelopment. As shown on the zoning chart, we comply with parking at 180 parking spaces. And just to briefly cover the other dimensional and density requirements, there's no variance from dimensional or density requirements. In fact, we reduced the existing impervious surface from 69% to 53%. So that's a 16% reduction in impervious. Even the 69% I think, applied, but we're going to be reducing by 16%, which is important to the resource area where we're proximate to the development. So with that, Bob will present the PowerPoint, and then Jeff will talk about the adequacy of the chalet court construction and layout. That chalet court layout that's shown on the plan, you'll see in our PowerPoint that it directly follows the 1972 layout that was approved for the town. And we do have an opinion of council on chalet court, that it's a way that is under the control of the town of Danvers, and that the town may delegate the process of constructing the way to third parties. So obviously, as part of the project, we would look forward to making that improvement at our cost, and we would do that to comply with town standards so that at some point in the future, it would hopefully be accepted as a public way in the town. So that covers it for now, and we look forward to your questions and comments. And
Before we start, I just have a quick question. I know you have two applications, one for site plan and one for the roadway improvement. Are we going to kind of meld them together, or are we going to distinguish one application from another?
I think we're probably covering enough of the detail for the second one in the presentations in the first, so it does kind of make sense to meld them together, if that's okay with the board. We're
going to vote on them separately, I'm assuming.
Right.
Yeah, yes. They might be in the same decision, but it's something that we're going to figure out internally.
So we don't want to do one then the other, or do we need to, I guess is the question.
I mean, I think ultimately, at the end of this, there probably should be an official 2 separate votes, but I think we can concurrently discuss them because they're so aligned, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just didn't know how you wanted to do it, because typically we just have just a site plan application, but you've got 2 separate applications. I just wanted to know how you want to.
Yeah.
Sure. We did file the 2 separate applications, so opening the hearing, I would expect is on both, right? And the information is information that's appropriate to both, I think.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Bob Clark from Allen & Major Associates. As we previously mentioned, we're at 152 Endicott Street. We're zoned commercial 3. The site is approximately 4.31 acres. The zone chart here shows that lot area was required at 40,000 square feet. The frontage and also the front yard is at 50 feet. We far exceed any setbacks for frontage and also front yard, side yard, and rear yard. The side yard is 25. The rear yard's 25. We're at 26 on the side and 55 on the rear. We won't exceed 45 feet in the building height. You can have a building coverage of 50%. We're at 14. Impervious at 80. We're at 53. And the parking, we also meet the parking at 180 parking spaces. Can I go to the next slide, Josh, please? So Fidelity is a 10,900 square foot with 35 employees. Right now, there's currently proposed a hotel in the back of the site at 15,250 square footprint. That's a 95 room, 4-story, and the parking is 180 required, and we have 180 provided. So next slide, please, Josh. So the existing site is the old Denny's and Econo Lodge. As you can see, there's the buildings are pretty dilapidated. Next slide, Josh, please. And this is the proposed elevation of the Fidelity building. The slide on the top is the front along Endicott Street, and in the back is going to be the entrance of the site where the parking is, and there's a patio for cafeteria. So, and there's also hard paper copies on the easel. So next slide, Josh.
Could I just have you move those, could we move those a little bit back, just because we can't really see part of the plan?
That one too, or?
Yeah, no, that one's fine. Awesome, thank you.
So here's the site. We're surrounded by a river, wetlands. We have BVW, bank, riverfront, floodplain, salt marsh wetlands, BBW Bank, and also Saltmarsh Bank. So we have 6 different protectable resources. The only access for the site is coming in through Chalet Court, which is a 40-foot right-of-way off of Endicott Street in front of the Bed Bath & Beyond on the opposite side of the Salem 5. Next slide, please, Josh. So the elevation at Endicott is approximately 13. We are raising the site approximately 3 feet. The majority of the site is 15. The pads are at 16. The back of the site is at elevation 10, and then it drops all the way down to 0 along the river. We have a 5-foot proposed wall at the perimeter of the south and east side of the site, and nothing exceeds 3.5% slope. ADA is all 1.5%. Next slide, please, Josh. So we have an underground detention system that's going to be located in the blue section. That is a water quality unit with an isolator row, and there's 4 discharge points to the rear of the site punching through the wall. Next slide, please, Josh. We are replicating wetlands because we are filling wetlands for the access through Chalet Court, coming from a dry piece to crossing over right there between those 2 walls. And we're exceeding the requirement of the wetland replication, where 3,491 is required, and we're at 3,513. We are also exceeding the stormwater flood storage. We're at 11,153 cubic feet, where 9,000 and change is what's required. So next slide, please, Josh. Utilities are serviced with water, gas, sewer. We're tying into an 8-inch CLD. Everything ties into Endicott Street right now. There is a proposed sewer pump station that we're working with the town on. We do have a location just to the left of Chalet Court as you enter into the site. So we are providing a location for that sewer pump station that's been in the works and planning for quite some time now. Next slide, Josh. We are using the Viper. It's a 23-foot tall, light, 6-inch reveal. All of this is dark sky compliant. This is LED. You can actually use your phone to actually dim these lights. Everything's going to be direct down and shoebox cutoff fixtures. Next slide, Josh. And then we are heavily planting along the gas station on the side with a vegetated screen, and also planting up around the patio area where Fidelity is, and foundation plantings. Next slide, Josh. So this is in red, this is the right-of-way in Chalet Court. This is a 40-foot wide right-of-way. We are proposing a 24-foot wide road with 5-foot sidewalk that then connects into Bed Bath & Beyond. So we are controlling and having all of our improvements within that right-of-way. We're not going outside of the right-of-way to make anything work. There's some parking spaces that would have to be reworked on the neighboring property. So next slide, Josh. All right, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jeffrey Dirk, who's going to talk about traffic.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Jeffrey Dirk. I'm the managing partner with Vanessa & Associates, and as you heard, I'm the transportation consultant on the project. So as you've got the 2 items that the chair had mentioned before you, I'm going to talk about the overall transportation study, which is obviously going to talk about Chalet Court and its adequacy and its design. I'll also kind of follow up with what our attorney had mentioned, just in terms of kind of the history and the layout. And I think more importantly, what I'm going to focus in on is the creation of Chalet Court as it relates to the access to this property, because I think it's very important as we're looking at how to access the property, the need for Chalet Court, but also our coordination with the abutter as well. So I'll go through that. But first, I'm just going to focus in on the transportation assessment. So we did prepare a full transportation impact assessment, and just as the name implies, it looks at all modes of transportation, so pedestrians, bicycles, as well as transit users as it relates to the project, but also just existing conditions in the area. And that does form some of the basis of the improvements that we're recommending as a part of the project that we will undertake with the requisite approvals. The project, as we've looked at it and its impacts on the roadway network, is our findings are that it will not have a significant impact on traffic operations. So as we're talking about traffic operations, what we're assessing is what you experience on the roadway, which is delays, getting stuck in traffic, and how long do you wait at any of the signals along Endicott Street. Those delays translate into backup, so how much queuing happens at an intersection. So we're looking at those parameters before and after the project's traffic is added. And of course, we're considering mitigation as well, which there's a very extensive improvement package that we're proposing as part of this project. So with all of those parameters in place, what we're showing is, in terms of what you'd experience in terms of impacts, is delays at any of the intersections along the Endicott Street corridor will increase by no more than 10 seconds for any movement at those intersections. And those backups that happen at intersections along Endicott Street, the queues or the backups would not increase by any more than 4 vehicles. The longest queues would, of course, happen as you're exiting Chalet Court, because that's where we're adding our traffic, and that's a measurement of before and after the project's traffic. So that's what we're talking about in terms of impact. So less than 10 seconds of added delay, which is really not perceivable to the average motorist. And then as you're driving along the corridor, Endicott Street wouldn't see an increase in queues of more than 4 vehicles at any movement on the intersection. The majority of, or where the longest queue would happen, would be on Chalet Court itself. The last two things that we pointed out here really deal with safety. So safety, as we look at it, is motor vehicle crashes along the Endicott Street corridor. As we looked at the crash history along the corridor for the past 5 years, there's no significant crash trends. There are crashes happening, but the number of crashes that are happening in relation to the volume of traffic that's traveling on the corridor is not disproportionate. Given the volume of traffic, you expect there's going to be fender benders, and what the analysis is suggesting is that those number of fender benders that are happening is not disproportionate, not what would be unexpected based on the volume of traffic. And then lastly, sight lines. So it's very important, as we're establishing this new Chalet Court layout, that you have adequate sight lines. We look at it saying, if that traffic signal that's there, if it's not working and it's just operating under stop sign control, you need to be able to see a vehicle that's approaching you and exit from Chalet Court, make a left or right-hand turn with traffic approaching you along Endicott Street, and do that in a safe manner. So we've assessed sight lines under that condition where the signal's not working, it's operating under stop control, and what we've determined is that the sight lines at that intersection far exceeds what's required for the actual speed that vehicles are actually driving along the roadway. Next slide, please. This slide just shows the context of the project. You can see here, if you can ignore the thermostat in here, yeah, it's in this location here. Endicott Street, obviously, running through the center of the slide. 128 and the ramps here are shown as well. Just kind of keep that in mind as we're talking about Chalet Court, because it's very important as we're talking about the access and some of the things that the applicant has undertaken to try to establish different types of access to the property, and why we ended up back at the Chalet Court access. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the study area that we evaluated as a part of the project. So you can see the intersections along the Endicott Street corridor stretching from the signal at Market Basket. This is the Mass General Hospital signal, the interchange of the 128, and then continuing westerly to the Sylvan Street intersection. It's basically all the signalized intersections along that corridor itself. What's also shown on the slide, as I had mentioned in the initial part of the presentation, transportation assessment. So what you see in the orange dash lines, that's where there's a sidewalk. Where there's blue lines, that's where there's crosswalks at the locations. So what you can see is this is a walkable corridor. There are sidewalks along at least one side, both sides as you head towards the Market Basket Plaza. There are crosswalks across the intersections. As we're looking at the project, we want to connect up to those facilities and make sure that you can, cross, because as you're on our side of the street, there is no sidewalk, so we need to get you across the street to where the sidewalk is on the other side of Endicott Street. And when you look at the layout for Chalet Court, the planned improvements, which you'll see is we're establishing that connectivity already at a signalized intersection with push buttons to be able to cross the street itself. The other thing that's shown here is at Commonwealth Avenue here, you do see the two Bs that are there. There is bus service along this corridor. The MBTA provides I think it's the 435 and the 436 bus. Both travel along this corridor. Again, that's important. We're talking about a hotel use, but also employees that will be here. So we want to make sure that it's an opportunity for them to the extent they want to use the bus service. There is a bus stop. We're going to connect up to the sidewalk. So this does provide that availability to use bus service, encourage our employees to do that, and then have them safely be able to walk to the site. The other thing before we go to the next slide, just in terms of what we've collected for data, traffic counts at all of these intersections, daily traffic counts on Endicott Street, as well as looking at speed of traffic. So we've measured traffic counts at each of these intersections during 3 peak periods, in the morning between 7 and 9 when people are going to work, in the evening between 4 and 6 when people are coming home from work predominantly. And then given that we have a retail use, but this is also a retail corridor, we also look at a Saturday time period. The Saturday time period is from 11 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, and that's when retail uses peak. So we're looking at those 3 time periods. Just to put some context of the traffic volumes, the two-way volume on a daily basis along Endicott Street where the site is located is just about 23,500 vehicles per day. So that's two-way traffic going by the project site in both directions. What's interesting about this quarter is it's exactly the same on a Saturday. So what you see is just consistent traffic along this corridor, as you're probably familiar with it, on both a weekday and a Saturday, just given the commercial nature, but also the interchange area. So you get your commuter flows, but you also get your retail flows in the area. This posted speed limit is 30 miles an hour in this area. Because of all the signals and that volume of traffic, the actual speed of traffic that we measured over a 3-day period, the majority of the vehicles are going close to 30 miles an hour because the signals are set up so that you really can't go much faster than that, plus the volume of traffic on the corridor. So it keeps it in line with the posted speed limit, which is not a bad thing. Next slide. So this slide, small numbers on there, but this is the estimated amount of traffic that we're expecting as a result of the 10,000 square foot retail building and the hotel use, and that's why you see across the top here, we have the trips for the retail component, trips for the hotel component, because they generate traffic differently. And then what I've shown in the yellow column here, that's the total amount of traffic. So this is the net new traffic that we're adding on top of the Endicott Street corridor. The large number you see in the top, the 1,176 vehicles, that's the 24-hour or operational day volume for the project. So that's the amount of traffic that's getting added on top of the 23,500 vehicles that are on the corridor itself. Then the next numbers are the peak hour numbers. So this is the weekday morning peak hour, which in this area happens to occur between, I believe, 8 and 9 in the morning. The project will produce about 59 net new vehicles on the corridor. The evening peak hour, I believe, is 4:15 to 5:15 p.m. A net new added to the corridor is about 94 vehicles. And then during that Saturday peak shopping period, which is 11:15 to 12:15, we're going to add a net new of about 118 vehicles onto the Endicott Street corridor. So we've estimated the volume of traffic. And the next slide, please. This slide here shows how that traffic adds itself to the Endicott Street corridor and then ultimately outside of the study area that we've assessed. So as we're talking about that added traffic and as my initial remarks of not a significant increase in terms of delays in queuing, one of the reasons for that is that, of course, the traffic is most pronounced at our driveway, so at Chalet Court. And then as you get to each of the successive intersections outside of the area, the numbers get smaller and smaller. So as we're looking at impacts at each of these individual intersections, that's why we're not showing large increases in delay or vehicle queuing, because as you get further away from the site, the numbers are quite dispersed. But essentially, as you're looking at it just in aggregate, about 55% of the traffic is oriented to and from the east of the site, 45% toward Sylvan Street. The majority of the traffic that's oriented to and from the east is getting on the highway. It's about 20% heading towards Gloucester and about 20% heading, we'll say, towards the Waltham area or towards the 95 area. So it's very dispersed in terms of the amount of traffic in the area, and that's why, again, the impact is not significant. Next slide, please. So after we've assessed the impacts of the project, we have a series of recommendations. The first set of recommendations are related to the site plan, and these are all things that Bob has incorporated in the site plan. It's just really making sure that we've got sufficient number of lanes within the project site, so what you can see is at least along Chalet Court, 1 lane in each direction is sufficient for the amount of traffic that we're producing, and we've analyzed it as 1 lane in each direction. You'll see a plan in a moment that looks at how the road is actually going to be designed. There's also a short little right turn pocket as you get up to the roadway, and I'll describe why we have that, but in terms of our analysis, it's essentially 1 lane in each direction, which is sufficient for the traffic. We will be reconstructing the intersection in its entirety, so brand new traffic signal system, wheelchair ramps, pedestrian accommodation, so it's going to be a free, fresh traffic signal itself. The last set of recommendations are really internal site, 2-way drive aisles, 24 feet in width, making sure that the signs comply with industry standards, crosswalks, wheelchair ramps, things like that. So again, Bob has made sure that these are all incorporated in the site plan. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this plan will be difficult to read, but now we're looking at the Chalet Court improvements. So just to spend a moment on this, so as our attorney had mentioned, the establishment of Chalet Court was done in 1972. The board may be familiar with some of the reasons for this, but as Mass DOT undertook improvements to Route 128 and establishing Route 128, and they do this typically at any interchange in the Commonwealth, they establish what's known as no access lines. What they do not want is the ability of someone to be able to start to interfere or create intersections that may interfere with the state highway system. So they establish no access lines to make sure that no one can build a driveway opposite a ramp or some place where it would interfere with state highway operations. The other reason that they do that is to plan for future improvements. If for some reason in the future the state decides that they want to provide a slip ramp to get onto the highway, they want to make sure that no one builds anything in this area to the extent that the Commonwealth would then have to purchase that property from a private owner. So they go in advance and establish these no access lines. This property was actually developed prior to the establishment of the no access lines in this area. So what the Commonwealth did is they went and when they recently updated the no access lines, they established a no access line along the entirety of the property that actually did include the existing driveway. For some reason, they never enforced that provision. So the site was allowed to operate with the Denny's and the hotel there, and the Commonwealth never came in and made that or asked for that driveway to be closed. But there is a no access line that goes right across that driveway. The intent of the state was to have this driveway closed, Chalet Court constructed, but because Chalet Court was never constructed, they never enforced the no access restriction here. However, there is no access allowed to this property. We went to Mass DOT to see if there was an opportunity to retain this access and in fact maybe move this access so that it could come out opposite the ramps here. We had several discussions with the Boston office to talk about what that might look like, what the requirements are. We do not have rights to that access. We have to demonstrate to the Commonwealth that creation of that access will not hinder the use or operation of the state highway system. So in looking at an analysis of this intersection where you would have a signalized intersection here, allow for a straight through access into the property here, we would also need to construct a left turn movement in here, and that's very important as well. As we looked at this ramp, and I talked about queuing, if we went back to the original aerial photograph, which you see is the ramp curls around quite quickly here. There's not a lot of queuing space between Endicott Street and the ramp. We undertook a full analysis of the ramp system, reconstructing the intersection, adding lanes, adding that left turn movement into the site. And what the conclusion was is there is not sufficient distance between Endicott Street and where it ties into Route 128 to store the vehicles coming off of the highway without having it impact mainline operations. So that's a non-starter with Mass DOT. It's certainly that creation of that access provides significant benefits to this property. However, the state and Mass DOT would not accommodate that, basically. And one of the reasons for that was because they said, we purposely established Chalet Court for the purpose of providing access to this property, closing off the existing driveway. And that was what their intent was with the taking. And in fact, they compensated the original property owner for the fact that they shut off their driveway there. So the Commonwealth has basically already taken care of it. They compensated the property owner, established the no access lines. So for us to go back and try to reestablish that, we really had to make a compelling case. And the fact is, the physical geometry does not allow for a driveway to be constructed opposite this, incorporated into the signal. So I would say the applicant spent a significant amount of time and money for us to undertake that effort, and the state said, no, take a look at Chalet Court. If you say to us or prove to us that there's absolutely no way to access this property through the use of Chalet Court, then we might entertain having a further discussion with you. But in that case, you're not getting access to the signal. It would be a right-in, right-out accommodation, which really is not going to support a use on this property. So that fast forwards and gets us to the plan that you see before you tonight and that we've been talking about. So as I mentioned, the intent here is to reconstruct the entirety of the signalized intersection here. So we're putting in all new pedestrian accommodations so that, as we showed, that linkage to be able to cross the street, because there is no sidewalk along this side. It's on the opposite side of Endicott Street. So there'll be a sidewalk along Chalet Court that will bring you up to the signalized intersection, and then a crossing to get you across, and then to the sidewalk, and eventually over to the other retail uses, as well as to the bus stops. That's important because we have a hotel here, so if someone wants to go and get food or something and it's not there at the hotel, if they can walk or bike to be able to get there, we're providing those accommodations so that can take place. Chalet Court will be one lane in each direction. We have provided crosswalks across the drive to be able to get to some of the other retail uses and back and forth between our property. As you approach the intersection with Endicott Street, it's a through left turn lane. There's a very short right turn lane there. One of the reasons why we've established the right turn lane, we physically need the pavement area so that a truck can make that right-hand turn, because it's going to swing wide, use both lanes to be able to turn onto Endicott Street. But as a passenger vehicle, if we don't stripe something there, it's just going to be this wide open expanse of pavement. So there is the opportunity to create a short right turn pocket. So we've done that as a part of the design that's here. When we analyze it, we don't analyze it assuming you can get into that lane, because the reality is, if you have one or two cars stacked at that signal, you can't get to the right turn lane. So to suggest if someone wants to make a right-hand turn, they can come right up to Endicott Street, it's not correct, and it wouldn't be something we want to analyze that way. So we've analyzed it as just a single lane going out. We can go to the next slide, because I think that'll kind of follow up on some of the other points I wanted to mention. So one of the mitigation items, as we're reconstructing that intersection, the whole Endicott Street signals, they're a part of a system. So they're a coordinated signal system. So they all are interconnected. They all talk to each other. One of the reasons why you get that 30-mile-an-hour speed along the corridor is because it's made so that if you go faster than 30 miles an hour, you're going to hit a red light down at the next intersection. So it's time to really keep the traffic flowing within that 30-mile-an-hour speed. So what we're doing as a part of the project is we reconstruct the intersection. We'll be retiming and implementing an optimal coordination plan for all of the signals along the corridor. As we looked at what the impact of that would be with our added traffic, retiming the signals and reconstructing the intersection with Independence Way and the new Chalet Court, the traffic operations after these improvements are in place will be either equal to or better than the conditions that would exist if this project was not built. So it's basically either a betterment or a no harm condition over what we term the no build conditions. So what we're doing is essentially not only offsetting the impact of the project, but in some instances, and in the Chalet Court case, we're actually making things better by either reducing delays or vehicle queues, or both at the intersections. So that's, again, a mitigation commitment as a part of the project itself. Next slide, please. Lastly, as I mentioned, we do have opportunities to reduce traffic and parking associated with the project. That's what's known as transportation demand management measures. So we do have a series of recommendations that the applicant will undertake that are really designed to make sure that people understand that there's opportunities using bus service, walking, biking to the site. So providing information on those availability, the service routes, the times for the MBTA service, providing that to not only the employees but also to hotel guests guests. So when you log into the hotel website, there'll be information provided so that you know you could take a bus here from the Newburyport commuter rail station. So there's not a need, if you don't have a car and you're flying into Logan, you can get on the commuter rail and be able to get here so that you can avoid the tunnel being closed as an opportunity. And again, some of the other things are just making sure we have the site properly designed with sidewalks, making sure that we have bike racks and other amenities within the site. I think that's the last slide I have. Yep. So I thank you for your patience and listening, and I'm certainly available to answer questions.
Thank you. I know there's a lot of material. I'm wondering if we might break for some questions now at this point, and then we'll get into the other aspects which you're going to present, I'm assuming landscaping and lighting and so forth, correct? Sound good?
That sounds great.
All right, at this point, just if the board has any questions on the overall project and the traffic study at this point, Lou?
Sure, just some questions with respect to the, so it's understanding that that you have a, Fidelity will be one of the sort of the main business tenant there. And in terms of will that be a public facing? Is that something where customers will come in, or is it going to be strictly an office in which employees will be working, or is it going to be the sort of thing almost like
Retail,
a bank
right?
where the
Yeah,
members of the public
retail
will be coming in
for-
regularly?
Retail for general financial customers.
So it'll be retail. Okay. In terms of the sort of the hotel that's being looked at, I understand you don't have a flag, as you put it, in terms of yet for a hotel. I mean, do you anticipate, are we looking at are we looking at a motel? Is it going to be like extended stay?
Probably
Or use
Pete,
of,
Pete
like-
can talk about it, but it's generally a limited service at that number with 95 keys, right? It's not a full service hotel. It's limited service. Type.
Pete Doucette with Torrington Properties. So we engaged a consultant to do a hotel study.
Okay.
And what it is if we, with the hotel, it's an extended stay hotel, limited service, so no restaurant, and just basically rooms, basic amenities. That's about it.
Would you be looking at just, extended stay in terms of, would it be, did you say extended stay?
I did, yes.
Okay. So would you be looking at something, we're looking at, I know obviously different brand, but like a Residence Inn, that sort of
Yeah, it would be a known brand.
model?
It's not a motel.
Okay. And in terms of, would you be looking then in terms of the usage of the hotel, would we be looking at, I know having done a study, would you be looking at prospective uses from like MGH? Would that be a potential use?
Yeah, exactly. That would be one of the users that would, one of the adjacent abutters that would have, be a high use. So if they have a family member there, they might be staying at this location.
Would there be has there been any thought in terms of having any sort of, and I'm not sure if MGH would provide this or a hotel, like any sort of shuttle service that would provide, so that you don't have, at the beginning of the day, 75 people going and getting into their cars and driving a quarter mile up the street?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a conversation we can have when we figure out who that user might be.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, obviously keep the traffic off the roads and make it a lot easier for people to get back and forth.
Okay. Okay, in terms of the, again, I may ask for some more questions. I don't want to monopolize it here. But just in terms of traffic, I guess, in terms of, and I know it was mentioned a little bit, earlier in terms of that, it seems like a lot of the traffic would sort of be pressured sort of on site. That's where you'd see, so people leaving, that's where maybe cars would be bunched up. How would that, how has consideration been given to the abutting properties, like such as, because I know we have the former Bed Bath & Beyond there, the Salem 5. How would that affect, how would Chalet Court affect those abutters, if at all?
So I think in terms of, as you look at Endicott Street and the access into the property, it really doesn't change from the standpoint of how they access the property. However, there'll be additional vehicles now traveling along Chalet Court that they'll need to interact with. One of the, so the way that we've initially laid out, and based on some schematics that were provided by the budding property owner, there was a desire for a driveway close up to this area here. There's also a desire for a driveway back here. I think what'll happen is, to the extent that if someone's trying to get out of the driveway that's close up to here, if there's one or two cars queued there, you're going to need to wait to get out. I think it's not going to be much different than what would happen today if there were 1 to 2 cars there, but now we're going to be adding some additional traffic there. That's why this additional driveway in the back and the connection is important, because, I might recognize, if I'm a frequent user of the plaza here, that, now with Chalet Court being constructed, it's actually going to be easier for me to come out here and then get at the back of that queue and then get processed by the signal. What's important as we're looking at it is the wait times for someone who's exiting with the improvements in place are not going to substantially increase.
Okay.
It's only going to go up by a few seconds. So I think the wait times for someone exiting is not going to be significantly different. But you as a motorist, in terms of choosing now, where do I enter? Because right now, as you know, it's kind of a free-for-all, because there is no, curb, there's no really impediment to cross and then get into the roadway here. So now this will actually be safer from the standpoint of we're organizing it into 2 driveways. But as a user, you'll decide, it's probably going to be easier to come out at the back here, and I'm not going to wait that much longer coming up to the signal there. So we have looked at it in terms of how it will impact those users, but clearly, there's no traffic really other than the bank that's impeding with them going this way, and now we're going to have the use that's here.
Right, so in terms of the bank, for example, traffic to the bank, so the addition of the uses here, so in terms of Fidelity as well as the hotel,
Right.
should not adversely affect in terms of their use of it, so it's not going to be, I'm not going to go to that branch because I can never get out.
Right. In fact, so going in, one of the things we've done for the bank use is we have added some do not block pavement markings on Chalet Court, so that the driveway would be kept clear. We do not see the queues getting back to a point where we kind of block their driveway in this area here, but we have provided do not block markings, so if someone's coming in, they'll be able to make a left-hand turn to get into the bank. Coming out is obviously a right-hand turn, so it's much easier. But we have considered that.
Okay. And have you had conversations with the abutters regarding traffic access, this whole thing, or?
Well, I know we've provided the information to them. They did provide to us an initial sketch plan of kind of what their thoughts were. What we have done is we've made sure that the road fits within the layout that was established, or a 50-foot right-of-way, and then we took into consideration actually the design that they gave us as to where they initially would like their driveways to be located. We expect it'll be a kind of an ongoing dialogue to try to establish where do they want those driveway points, but the initial starting point was where they suggested they would like their driveways, and we've placed those on the plan.
And I guess the question is too, just, in terms of, again, sort of looking at the traffic pattern here and the no access points. I mean, that seems to be just a little curious, and I'm dating myself. I think I remember that area back when it was, I think, Walsh's Garden Center back in the day, where you'd get Christmas trees from it all. But how'd that end up being? It ends to seem really that it's become sort of landlocked.
Exactly.
And was that because of a highway improvement in the 70s, or?
Correct. Mass DOT went through, and they do this on a regular basis, is they actually, look at their land holdings and where they may want to make future improvements. And then what they do is, ideally, before property gets developed, they establish those no access lines so that they then don't have to go and purchase an improved property.
Right.
In this case, there was an existing use on the property itself. So what they did was they compensated the owner to close their existing driveway, establish a no access line, and then laid out Chalet Court, is what they had done in this case. So what they did was say, when this property gets redeveloped, that driveway is going to go away, and you're going to use Chalet Court. So that was all taken into account when the state established the no access lines. And when you look at how they actually did it, what you'll see is it's no access along the entirety of our frontage, and then the abutting property, you'll see there's a slight area where the driveways are, that's access, and then it's no access, and then it's access, and then it's no access to Chalet Court. Another thing is, you look at kind of how we've laid out Chalet Court, they purposely established a no access line so that the radius on Chalet Court cannot extend beyond where we've put it. So it's very deliberately established. And everything fits within where they have kind of allowed access to take place.
Right. Thank you. I may have some further questions, but that's all I have for right now, Jim.
Thank you. Tori, questions at this point?
Yeah, I just want to clarify some of what I'm seeing in this plan. So would you be reducing the width of access to the Bed Bath & Beyond parking lot from what it currently is?
I believe it's currently I believe it's wide, pretty much wide open with the exceptions of some islands that are out there.
It's
So
pretty wide right now.
Yeah, so based on from what's there today, yes, because it's basically their drive aisles, and where their parking is just runs right out to where the chalet court layout is. I don't know if I'd necessarily, so I think from a physical reducing of width, the answer is yes. From the standpoint of the use of the right-of-way that's there, we're not. Because the right-of-way that's been established really doesn't allow for penetrations of that right-of-way to take place, or at least they haven't been defined. So I think the intent is, when the layout happens, is to define specific driveway points. And I think that's where that ongoing conversation of we've located where they've thought about where it may want to be. However, if they come back and say they wanted it at a different location or something like that, then, to the extent that we're constructing it, the intent would be to try to locate it where they would like to have it as well. So I think that's going to be kind of the ongoing conversation, is to try to resolve where would they like their driveways along that alignment.
It also looks like, whereas now a user of their parking lot could essentially pull straight out to sit at the light to get onto Endicott, now they would basically have to queue to get on Chalet Court and then make that left turn and then stop to wait to get onto Endicott. Am I understanding that correctly?
So depending on so if they come out of the driveway here, and I would actually suggest that what we're doing is actually an improvement over the current condition, just because of the fact what we want to make sure of is, if there's a driveway here that's close to the intersection, what we don't want to have is if you do have queuing. So if we stack 3 or 4 vehicles and they stack in this direction, you can't get into that site. So if I have a left turn phase coming onto the signal and I come around and this vehicle is queued because they have a red light, you can't, all of a sudden you start to get a bottleneck. What the plan actually does is puts this under stop control here. So if there's a queue, you really shouldn't be hanging out into the intersection there. So it's actually trying to create some 90-degree angles where we can put the traffic that's intersecting with Chalet Court under stop control, so that it basically provides better traffic flow and uniform traffic flow is what we're trying to do.
So I think you're saying that because of the layout of Chalet Court, it now creates the potential of everything getting kind of gridlocked, and so...
Not gridlocked, it's actually better. This is better, is what I'm suggesting.
So to remediate that, you'd require customers exiting that parking lot to stop before they turn into Chalet Court?
That's correct. That's what we're doing. Because today they don't have to do that. So basically, this is uncontrolled as it relates to accessing the Chalet Court right-of-way. Today, you can just shoot across from Bed Bath & Beyond and stay there. So the issue is, if you do have queuing that happens along here and someone tries to come in, certainly, potentially difficult to get to the back of the property that's there. So this is trying to organize that a little bit better. But again, we'll be working with the abutting property owner to find out, where would they like their driveways along this layout.
Yeah, I think that would be something that would be very important for me to see, that you are coordinating with that property owner, because it seems like this has a very great potential to affect convenience of access and egress from their property. And it's an intersection that can get backed up in all kinds of ways.
Right.
So I think we've got to proceed very carefully and deliberately. That said, this all looks a lot better than the Denny's.
Yeah, and hopefully, when we come back with a plan, after they've had a chance to kind of digest it, we can put some flow arrows on it to try to, show all of those, the different ways of paths of entering and exiting that property, so you can see where any conflicts might arise.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tori. Jean, do you have questions at this point?
No, I don't have any additional questions. I think everything was answered.
All right. Tim, questions?
A quick question on, I know we have this letter here, because some of my questions may be based on what's in here. Does that need to be read into the record?
Oh, this letter, so we're going to take the input from the applicant. The board's going to ask its questions, before we open it up to the town public, we will read into the record the letter from the developer, the butter's attorney. So we're not going to get into that just yet.
Okay.
I did have a chance to look at it, so if you had questions related to it, I don't know if it's out of line, but I can certainly try to answer some of them.
Well, I think just building off of what you just said, right, that to Tori's point, the coordination here with the abutters seems really important to make sure that.
Yes.
Because if this is not representative of what the final plan would be based on their input, I'm just curious, the fact that they said they provided input, I think I heard you say that it was reflected here, but now you need further coordination. I'm just trying to understand sort of how that's played out to date and why that's not final at this point.
The abutter provided an initial concept plan of Chalet Court and how it might relate to the, access into their property, which was provided to us as an initial kind of look at, so that we could try to see how it might relate to our development. So what we did do is, the alignment of the road is the same. In terms of how it fits within the 50-foot layout. We also established the driveways at the same location. I think some of the refinements that were made had to do with some of the issues or some of the questions that were raised with respect to truck access. Because as we're looking at trying to maintain tractor-trailer access, as was initially mentioned, because you have a wide open parking lot today without any curb lines established along Chalet Court, the trucks can come in and basically use the entire parking lot to do whatever maneuvers that need to be made. Fire trucks as well as delivery trucks. As soon as we start establishing, distinct driveway openings, that starts to confine how they're able to get into the property itself. So some refinements were made to some of the corner radii, as well as, some slight changes to the driveways themselves, mostly related to, again, the corner radii, to allow for the trucks to be able to get into the site. And we did run a full truck turning analysis of the property, and I'm not sure, if the abutter has seen it or not. It's something we'll certainly provide to them. But what it's showing is a tractor trailer and a fire truck can get into that property the same way that they do today with the driveway openings that are shown. So we're not inhibiting the ability of any of those vehicles to be able to get into the site. To the extent that they see some opportunities to try to improve that, certainly if that means moving some driveways in one direction or the other, or changing some of the corner radii, we can certainly do that. It's easy to, the road's not there. So I think to what kind of all of the questions that are being asked, if this is going to get laid out and it's eventually going to become a town way, let's make sure it works for everyone that's going to use it. So I think that, thanks. So this does show kind of the truck turning maneuvers and everything that we had done here. I'm not I think the abutter may have seen this, but maybe not. Okay. So those are the only changes that we really made, was to make sure that we could show the trucks getting in and out and that they had the maneuvering ability, so that we weren't changing anything with regard to their ability to be able to service the buildings. But the layout that's there on the driveway locations, and kind of what you see here is the dashed lines. Everything that you see is a dash line. That was provided to us by the property owner. Now, it's not to say that since they've had a chance to kind of look at all of this, they might want some things changed, and we certainly can do that. But we did try to incorporate all of the input that they provided to us into this, and certainly, again, we'll continue to work with them.
Understood.
I think it's important to know that we were trying to make this work within the right-of-way that was there, without having to try to utilize their property. Obviously, we're trying to make those connection points. We did an overlay of what they gave us versus what we have. And, we feel like, it's obviously very close, but our goal is to work with them. We want this to work for everybody. It creates a nice, safe access point to our site, to their site. So I think it's just an effort between us and them really getting together now that we've put this forth and they've had a chance. I think we sent the TIA back in May, and we sent the overlay and these plans probably about, 4 weeks ago? So, now it's really working together to try to figure out how it really works for everybody. But the goal was to make it work in the right-of-way, because it was designed for that intent.
Understood. That's it for me. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Tim. Just a few questions. Inside, just trying to understand the movements between the two buildings, between the hotel and the retail. Is there going to be some wayfinding and/or demarcation to kind of differentiate the parking for each site on the plan, or maybe you can indicate that?
Yes, so we have two-way coming in, one-way in and one-way out here. There's a 24-foot wide road. These are all 24-foot wide. There is head-in parking here. There's an island in this location. There's parking here, parking on the perimeter. So you can circulate around here, flow back out. You can come in here, flow all the way around the hotel. This is 60 feet from here to here, which is an 18, and a 24-foot drive lane all the way around. Two-way circulation.
So is the main entrance to the hotel going to be, if you can show where that is?
This is a porte cochere right in this location, so they could actually come down here and circulate through and then back out. And this would be the front entrance here. So you have parking here, parking along here, and parking all the way around this perimeter. This is a landscape island to get back down to the gas easement that crosses the site in the rear of the parcel, but you can circulate all the way around the hotel completely.
So is there going to be any signage saying that hotel parking this way, Fidelity parking this way, just to kind of keep people in their own?
Yes, absolutely. One of the key things is that, ironically, not ironic, but by design, basically, if you just draw an imaginary line here, this is pretty much Fidelity's parking, and this is the hotel parking. So there will be wayfinding signs, drop-off area, no parking area. We also added a connection point here to the gas station, so this is another curb cut in this location there too.
And then you've got a couple dumpsters. I can understand the location of the dumpster next to the retail. Can you just go over that real quick, the R and the T, what they stand for? And then I'm just wondering about the other dumpster location where it's kind of...
They'll be fully enclosed. The R is for recycle and the T is for trash, so there would be an 8-yard trash that the vehicle can pick it up. So basically the truck can pull straight in here, pick it up, back up, and then leave. Same with this. The location here is so that they can come directly down this drive aisle and pull straight in, pick it up, dump it, back up.
Question on that second location, would it be, I understand you got to get the truck in there and so on, but would it be more out of sight if you put it lower down on the plan? If, more, I guess,
meaning down in
southerly direction? Yeah.
in this location. So the reason why I mentioned that we bumped the parking out here and didn't propose any parking, this would be a logical spot, but this is graded at 3-to-1%, 3-to-1 slope so that you can get down. There is a large gas line that's running straight across the back of this parcel. So we can obviously look at that and maybe put it down in that location. So this is Fidelity's, this would be the hotel. Obviously, they wouldn't want it up front, but someplace that they can pull up and pick it, and we'd probably look to relocate it down in this zone there.
So I'm just wondering, because you do have a lot of conservation wetlands around there and so on, and windy days and trash don't mix too well, and what size fencing are you going to have around there? I know it's going to be screen fencing. How high is the fence going to be?
It's a stockade. I believe it's 6 or it's probably 8. I can look at the plan, but it's at least 6 feet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if 6 is going
Yeah.
to be enough, only because of the, you're on a highway corridor, it could be, it's windy and so on, you could get a lot of trash ending up perhaps flowing into those wetlands, which could create a problem.
We can obviously consider 8 feet if it's not already proposed on the plan.
Yeah, I believe the town, after higher than 7 feet, you gotta get it all, but you're getting it all permitted anyway, so just showing the plans and all that, so. That's just a concern, but I'm assuming that the only people that would have access to the trash are gonna be the employees of
Correct.
each facility?
Yeah.
For the most part. I'm sure you're going to go over some signage. Do you have signage that you're going to propose that's going to be off the building? Because is there going to be a marquee sign?
There would be a sign package under separate submittal. So if you want to go back to the elevation, Josh, right now they are proposing two signs.
Did I pass it?
Yeah. Two signs on the building facade, one on the front and one on the rear of the property.
Did I pass it?
No, it's right in the front, beginning. All right, so there's a sign right there that's on the Endicott side.
Okay.
And then if you go forward, Josh.
Yeah, okay. That's the
No,
front.
that's the beginning slide, so.
Yep.
Yeah, so advance it, go forward. Yeah, so there's the back. So I believe one sign is allowed right now, so they most likely will request a variance for the sign on the back of the building. If you want to continue to go forward to the Chalet Court, and then we are proposing a ground sign. So you can see that's the picture. So there's one on the front at Endicott, there's one on the back. That's your building signage. Again, one is allowed, so we'd most likely go to the ZBA and request a variance for the one in the back, because the back is the front door, technically.
So we're not putting a billboard on 128.
So if you go to Chalet Court, Josh, keep going forward. We are showing a monument sign in this location within the right-of-way, and that would meet the square footage of the requirements of a monument sign.
So you're going to have a marquee sign out front there that will...
Correct. It has tenants on there, calls out Fidelity and, whatever hotel comes
So you'll
later.
share that with the current
It would be
tenant?
for this development.
Or just for this development?
Yeah, they have their own
Right.
further down. So right now, there's a right-of-way. It makes sense to put it here versus in this location. So there is one shown on the site plan. And we would be coming in with a separate sign package, most likely to the ZBA for that extra wall sign.
Yeah, we would need to see those as well. I mean, the signs would typically go, we would see the signs. That's why I was curious. And the wayfinding signs and the directional signage inside the site, showing the movements inside the site, we would get those as well.
Okay, we can add that.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you. All right, I'm sure you're going to pick up, so what do you have left for us? I'm assuming you have landscaping, maybe concept plans, colors, snow storage, and you have the drainage study. Anything else I'm forgetting?
Nope, so this is the color rendering. We have a vegetated screen along the gas station here. This is heavily planted up around the patio and for Fidelity's building. In this location is going to be the wetland replication at a lower elevation. This is all turned back to natural. We're removing 13,000 square feet of riverfront that we're revegetating in this zone. These islands are planted with deciduous trees, and this is a green space in between. I think, is this the last slide, Josh? If you want to go back to the lighting, I can go over the lighting again. Oh, okay.
Are you going to present is that your presentation on the landscaping, or do you have a landscape architect?
I'm actually a landscape architect as
Okay.
well. If you want to get into plant species and specifics on trees. Yeah, there's a full planting plan
Yep.
and planting schedule in the
No,
plan
I
package.
don't need that. I'm just,
Okay.
do you have the percentage of landscaping versus impervious surface once you're completed?
Yes. So the slide on the front shows the zoning that we are at. The impervious cover is required at 80%. We're at 53%, so we far and exceed the 80% max. There's existing 69, so we're increasing the green in the impervious surface coverage. There's also the building coverage, which is 50% required max, and we're at 14% coverage on the building.
When you go back up to the parking table on that, I just had a question on that, that you started with, I think, originally.
Yep,
You mentioned the 180 spaces.
yep.
Is there going to be, how are the spaces going to be, do you have the breakdown
Yeah, that's on the plan package, but I can go over it.
denoted on the site, I guess, on the parking, on the site?
It's on the layout plan. See, you have your plan package. C102. And that gives the breakdown.
You want to?
So C102 has the breakdown. I could go through it. I have it on my notes here. But, so you get one space for every room. So that's, for the hotel, you've got 95 rooms, and then you have one space for each individual employee. They believe there's gonna be 6 employees at a shift. So that gets to 101 parking spaces, and we've provided 101 parking spaces for the hotel. The retail is 1 per each rental unit, but we don't have any seats, so that really doesn't apply. So on the retail, it's 1 per 250 gross floor area, so, and then 1 for every employee on the largest shift. So the way that counts out is they assume 35 employees, and so that's 79 required and 79 provided. So if you add the 101 to the 79, that's the 180. So the hotel's at 79, the hotel's at 101, and the retail is 79 spaces.
So I guess the question that, well, one of the things that's brought up to staff is, do you believe that we'll need all those spaces?
We're following the regulations of what's required and what's provided. You know, I don't think a hotel would ever be 100% occupied, but we're following the regulations that's in the zoning.
Maybe, Josh, you want to comment on
I
that?
don't know if,
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say that that is a true statement. They are meeting, well, they are technically meeting zoning, and, you know, the parking table under retail, it does have that one spot per employee on largest shift. I don't know, it's something that I thought we would discuss. I'm not sure if this tenant is a traditional kind of brick and mortar retail, which is like the line item in the parking table. I'd say it's more of like a hybrid retail, like a bank is like more personal service type parking usage. So that would be at like four spaces per 1,000, which they're doing. That the additional 35 spaces for that one employee on largest shift, I think is sort of something that we might want to talk about.
Yeah, Fidelity's been pretty adamant about the parking. They want more parking. They feel like they're going to have that type of business. So that's the one number that we're committed to. You know, on the hotel piece, you know, I think, you know, we've just based it on the calculation. You know, and the employee number's low because there's no restaurant there. So that's really based on, we kept that as tight as possible, just based on the fact that that's more cleaning staff and maybe a manager.
Could we put up the parking plan for a second? Do you have that slide?
Yep, it's right. Or, the actual spaces.
Yes.
It was C102, was that it?
C102.
Yeah.
There's so many plans, I'm trying to.
That's the one right there.
I guess for the development team, what would be the best sheet? What would be the best sheet on this to show that, you think? Or is this adequate, Jim?
Yeah, maybe we could make it a little bit bigger.
Or zoom in?
Yeah, if you can move it to here.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if on that, I guess, easterly side next to 128, or even the southerly side, could there be a room to maybe have some spaces in reserve, say 20 spaces or so, if we felt that, see how it, if it's actually needed or not. I think that's what I read from staff comments, so just wondering if that's,
I thought that, we just thought it might be, if there was potential there to have a, as Jim alluded to, some type of reserve or.
I guess we can look at that. Down here.
well, whatever's easier for you. I mean, if it's easier, I'm just thinking on the outer edges of the, whether it's on that side or down below.
I guess one other comment on this while we're on this, if there was going to be a discussion about potentially reducing the parking, it probably would be on those outer edges closest to the natural resources as possible if we were going to go in that direction.
I'm Greg Michaelitis from August Consulting. Two things. One, fidelity, there's a lease. We'll show you the lease line if we come next time. That there is their designated parking that, as Pete mentioned, so that number
Yep.
is what they need. We are negotiating with hotel users now, so we have to provide what's in your ordinance. We're happy to talk about it in reserve when that final tenant mix comes out, but at this point, I'd like to tell you, everybody's all signed up and ready to go, but we're still talking to hotel people, so all we do is meet your ordinance. We reduced the pavement by 13,000 square feet. So we didn't try to maximize the spaces. We're maximizing it to service what we're trying to provide here.
Yeah, I just thought I'd bring it up because it's in the staff comments to the board, and that's something that, if that could be accomplished, maybe we could make it a condition that if the applicant has a way to try to perhaps leave 20 to 30 spaces in reserve, then that would be, encouraged. But again, that's not going to take away from you trying to lease or, put a tenant in there that's going to, perhaps use all the spaces. I mean, it's just a recommendation.
And just for the record, this is the old pavement line here, where the red line is.
Yep.
These are the old spaces. So you can see this was all paved all the way back here. This entire zone is being removed and revegetated.
Where's the gas easement on that plan right now?
The gas
Below
easement runs, it pretty much runs straight. Yeah, it's 30-foot wide easement that runs pretty much this way, but if you want to go to the utility plan.
It's through the existing pavement now?
It's in the existing pavement, correct. Keep going.
They have a lot of sheets. Overall utilities, with this one, you think, Bob?
Is this the?
This is the overall utilities plan. Oh, I can see it. It's all.
30-foot wide easement.
What sheet number is that?
PDF page 10.
Thank you.
But C104.
C104.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right there it says gas. Right there it says gas.
Right now, that orange line it says 30-inch gas line.
Oh, I see. There it is, yep.
So what we did is we removed all the pavement in here, and we have an access point down. We've already met with them on site last week, showed them this access. They had no issues. We're staying out of their easement, and that was also another reason to revegetate in the riverfront area.
Questions? Just on the landscaping, I guess, if we could just give a little detail for the record on, I know you have the plant submittal, and we've talked about the percentage and so on. I assume drought-resistant plants. We're not going to have sprinklers.
Yep. Yeah.
That kind of shows that.
Jim, where did you say, where was the geographic, where did you say that you would like to see the landscaping on the plan? Somewhere on the plan?
So, I'm sorry,
No, I'm assuming they're drought-resistant
Oh,
plants.
sorry.
And we're not using, we're not sprinkling this, correct? Or are we?
Pete, do you think you're going to be sprinkling?
Or is it well, or is it gonna be town water?
We have town water right now. So when you're coming into the site, we do have deciduous trees planted right along the corridor here. Could you go to the next slide? All right, so this is where a vegetated evergreen screen is in this location. We have crocus, we have oaks in these islands here. Yes, everything is drought tolerant, everything is natural, native, and we don't plant any invasive species. So in this here, we have a couple of Acer rubrums, red maples, right in this location. So there's arborvitaes planted here because we have a tight area to screen this gas station to Fidelity. This is all low plantings. There's daylilies, black-eyed Susans. This is all more smaller shrubs, but that's a red maple, that's a red maple. These four here, oaks. We have two oaks on the end of the hotel. So this is pretty heavily planted plan.
No, I know, it looks great, don't get me wrong, I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that, if there's questions from the board, feel free to chime in on the landscaping. Did we answer the question on the watering part of it?
There's a note on note 21 on L401 that there's irrigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we typically say that the contractor would be in charge of doing any irrigation that's usually something that the owner would be going through, and sometimes it's drip, sometimes it's sprinkled, but we always plant native trees, native plants, and as I mentioned, no invasive species, so.
I think Lou has a question.
Yeah, just picking up on what Gina just mentioned, just looking at this is, I guess I'm looking at L401. I guess this is just picking up a similar point, because it makes a point, note 7 on the Loman side notes, if proposed irrigation system is not operational, landscape contractor responsible to water with temporary irrigation. So that would suggest to me that there is because it says if proposed irrigation system is not operational, to me that means that there is going to be an irrigation system.
Correct. So the note is really meaning that the contractor has to guarantee that plant material. They have to water the plant material during construction. So if this is a 6-month or an 8-month, that note's intended to have the contractor on the hook for.
But there will be a in-ground automatic
Yes,
sprinkler
yes.
system?
Yeah,
There will.
yeah.
And it's going to be tied in with town water versus well water?
It would most likely be tied in with town water, sure.
Snow storage on the site, on that, do you have snow storage areas that you're going to delineate?
Yeah, so if you want to go to not sure if we really showed it, but typically we would show it on the layout plan. Want to go to L. L102, Josh? We can add in the bubbles that show and depict snow storage.
Yeah, we don't want it dumping on your nice new plants, so, or in the wetlands, so it's gonna be a tricky spot with all those parking spaces and maneuvers that we have a
Yeah.
requirement across the street at the mall and similar commercial sites that if we have over 10-foot, snow mounds, you gotta take it off-site, so, you get a pretty active site there, hopefully you're gonna have it very active with a lot of hotel patrons and
Yeah.
customers, and so you're gonna need to Probably, I'm assuming, truck off a lot oftentimes, because if you're that close to wetlands,
Yeah.
if you're using salt and so on, there's probably restrictions on.
Yeah, so typically we, usually there's a condition that if the snow gets too high to manage, that they have to remove it from the site, so. But there is islands here, in these two locations. This location here, I don't think you're gonna wanna be pushing it back here to the
No.
river. So, you know, and you're not really gonna wanna pile it up against the building, so most likely they'll have to remove most of the snow from site once, you know, in big storms.
So the applicant will accept the condition to do so. I think working with Josh on that, I know in C3, it's typically 10 feet is what we impose down at the mall.
There is a condition about snow removal in our general conditions in every site plan decision, so.
Yeah.
Well, this site is a little bit more unique in the sense that it does have the proximity to the wetland areas in the C3 area, which some of the mall does not. So I just want to make sure that is where we don't really see any depicted on the site, and there's not a lot of areas for it, and you do have a fair amount of impervious surface that we're going to treat. That'd be conditioned.
Okay.
So snow storage with a restriction in terms of, not restriction, but just in terms of that it'd be, if it's over 10 feet, then it needs to be carted away.
Well, we might have to look at that.
Okay.
Because 10 feet at the Liberty Tree Mall, where you have buku parking spaces that are not being used, versus this site, you know, especially if we put some in reserve, it's going to be maxed out. Especially if you have, again, a tie-in with MGH and an active site all year round, and, you know. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I could look at the general condition and bring it up at the next meeting and see if the general condition that are in every site plan decision, if we feel we want to tweak it or want to customize it for this particular one, I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it ties into you know, what's allowed as far as snow storage near the wetland areas. What, in your experience, what would you think?
Well, you could store it on, if there is extra parking, you could store it on the pavement and then let it melt, because then it would go into the deep sump hooded catch basins and then tie into the overall drainage system. That is an alternative. And then if that gets too big, they can remove it from the site. Because as you can see, there's very little green space on the perimeter because we're right up against the wetlands, so you're not going to be able to push it up. You know, you're going to push it up and you're going to put it in the wetlands or this big naturalized area that we just created. Right. Again, the river comes in and it wraps right around this whole site, so there's very little room to store snow in the green spaces other than the islands.
Again, Greg Michaelitis, we're not opposed to any note. I mean, for our own operations, we got to remove the snow anyway. We got to provide proper parking, so we're not opposed to any note that says excess snow to, removed on site and disposed of properly, in accordance with state regulations or whatever. We do it all the time. I mean, it is what it is. We have to run a site too, so.
Thank you. Gene, I think you had a question about the salt.
Would the deep hooded sump remove salt from the snow?
No, but it would, any sand would be in there, so the sand would actually be able to collect in the deep hooded sump catch basin, and then in the spring, there's an operation and maintenance plan that we have in our drainage package, so that gets cleaned periodically through the year. Where one of the things I didn't mention is we're in front of the Conservation Commission on Thursday night, and the entire drainage is being peer reviewed by Hancock. That is something that is in the process right now.
Thanks.
Did other questions from the board regarding presentation thus far. Do we have any other, can you tell me on the, like a concept plan on the depiction, are the colors that are shown, are those going to be the colors of the building, or are those just for, do we know what colors we're going to be looking at?
Yes, those renderings we're in the DD stage right now of design for fidelity, so those are the colors. Those images are what we intend to build.
So it's kind of a tan and green, is that?
Yeah, like yeah, exactly, a dark green, a tan with black storefront windows.
The only reason why I'm asking from experience, we have a pink bank one time in town and a chocolate building elsewhere, so it's good to ask.
Yeah, no, those are the intended colors.
And the other building, do we know yet, or is that?
We don't know yet, because again, that depends on who that user is. And these materials, just so you know, it's a combination of fiber cement, it's a metal panel, aluminum storefront, pretty standard materials.
But on the other building, I guess, would you, are we talking earth tones, pastels? I mean, we'd have to take a condition as to at least have staff review the colors prior to, get some type of administrative review, because we're not going to know.
For us, we want it to look good, so it would be some type of complementary color.
Okay. And do we have a presentation on the drainage? Does anyone on the board want to hear about drainage? Or just kind of give us a quick presentation for the record, for members in the audience and people that might be watching at home?
I did have just a quick follow-up question about some of the
Josh, do you want to put
operations
the grading plan, the drainage plan?
Yes.
So C-103. So I already mentioned the elevations of the site. We're at 13 up at Endicott. These two pads are set at 16. The overall site is 15. This is a large underground detention system here and here. There is 4 discharge points in this location, here, 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 and can't really see around that thermostat, but so basically this is there's a 4-inch underdrain that basically discharges and then a 12-inch overflow. So there's a 1.5 feet of freeboard through this entire system. It has an isolated row, and it also has, as I mentioned, the deep sump hooded catch basins, and we also have a water quality unit that's handling the road because we don't have any detention out here. So we have a large water quality unit out on Chalet Court that will get the treatment in that manner. But the isolator row, and because we're reducing the amount of impervious surface, we're meeting all of the state standards for decreasing in all the storm events. And as I mentioned, that will be peer reviewed by Hancock during the Conservation Commission process.
Okay. Questions from the board on the drainage or anything to date, to the moment? Tori, no. Lou has a question?
Yeah, just a question, and the question came up just because in terms of looking at one of the renderings, showing the outside of the building with as fidelity with it looked like you had picnic tables and umbrellas and such. Now it's my understanding from what's been said so far, there's no. The hotel will not have any sort of restaurant associated with it. So there's not, similar to Fidelity, there's not going to be, there's not planned to be a cafe or anything like that. So if someone wants a cup of coffee, they have to leave site, correct?
Yeah, so that it's basically for the employees for their lunchtime.
Sure.
Basically having a sitting area, people bring their lunch, or a lot of times you have coffee in an office type setting, but it's not open to the public, and there's no restaurant proposed.
Nor will there be any anticipated a cafe or anything of that nature.
No. They have a
kitchenette. Got it.
No grease trap,
No.
Okay.
no fried chicken or anything. They got plenty of places down the street they can walk to. Just again, for the record, could you just quickly go over the lighting plan?
Sure.
To show that, please.
You want the number, John?
Sure. Oh. Would this suffice, Bob, on the screen? Or?
Well, yeah, you could use that too. So the yellow donuts show where all the poles are. So it would be dark sky compliant shoebox fixtures. This is actually a model called the Viper. And as I mentioned before, this is an LED light. You can actually dim these things with your phone with an app. The 23-foot height, and there's a 6-inch reveal, so you're not seeing the 2-foot tall concrete columns that you see in a lot of retail parking lots. This will have a 6-inch concrete reveal in the grass area. But again, everything's dark sky compliant. We did do a photometric plan, which is on C105, that shows that we zero out pretty much at the property line. There's nothing proposed on the side of Endicott, between the Fidelity and the Endicott Street, for lighting in that location.
Lighting on the buildings, do we have any bollards? Do we have lighting on the building themselves, entryway lighting, all that stuff needs to be shown.
Good. Anything on the buildings?
We'll show those we'll add those to this plan. It's going to be minimum lighting, code required, at the egress points, and like the service door for the main point of entry room.
Signage, will signage be lit or not?
We'll have to confirm all that with the signage consultant. We're going to use a consultant that will design the wayfinding. They're Fidelity's preferred signage vendor, and then they'll also work with Greg and I on the monument sign out in the right-of-way.
Okay. What else? Other questions from the board at this point? I think I've got everything on my list. Before I turn it over to the public, we are going to read into the record Attorney Nancy McCann is representing the abutter, and she asked, because she had another meeting off-site, if she could read her concerns into the record. So I'm going to ask Lou to read that, the clerk, at this time.
Sure, yeah. As Jim mentioned, this is from Attorney Nancy McCann. It's dated July 25th, 2023, addressed to the Danvers Planning Board. Subject, 152 Endicott Street Site Plan Hearing. Dear board members, I represent the Anna Mrs. Trust, direct abutter and owner of the properties located at 160, 180, and 182 Endicott Street. I have a conflict this evening and will not be able to stay for the in-person hearing, and request that this letter be read into the record and considered by the board. My clients are not opposed to the redevelopment of 152 Endicott Street as proposed by the applicant. The property has been allowed to deteriorate into an eyesore over the years. However, such development must be done in a manner that respects the access needs of the long-standing commercial tenants on my client's properties, which include Salem 5 Bank, McDonald's, and a multi-tenanted retail center. My client has very serious concerns with the adequacy of access proposed by the applicant, which utilizes an old street layout, which was never engineered, and which, in the opinion of our traffic consultant, TEC, and our civil engineer, Maureen Cameron, does not line up properly with the existing signalized intersection as constructed. As a result, the submitted plan attempts to contrive an old layout to fit its needs, resulting in potential negative impacts on the existing long-standing commercial uses. We attempted to work with the applicant, even providing a concept plan developed in cooperation with a prior developer of 152 Endicott, and which would have provided easements on my client's property so that the access could be properly configured. Unfortunately, the applicant chose to proceed with the plan as submitted without even the courtesy of letting us know the filing had been made. So, we and the board are in the position of reviewing what we believe to be an inferior plan. We have not had sufficient time to complete our technical review of the plan, and we understand that the board may be voting to have a traffic peer review completed. Given the complexity of this intersection and the very real potential that the old chalet court layout being utilized by the applicant will have serious detrimental impacts on the existing commercial uses on my client's properties, it's now bolded, we request that the board vote this evening to have a third-party peer review completed and the hearing be continued to your September meeting to allow time for my client, as the direct abutter, to have time to review the peer review report prior to the next meeting. Stop bolding. We request that the planning board's traffic peer reviewer consider and address the following. 1, whether the layout as proposed provides safe access into the McDonald's site, 182 Endicott, the retail center, 180 Endicott, and Salem 5, 160 Endicott, particularly given the sharp curve in close proximity to the signal, question mark. 2, will the queue to exit at the signalized intersection back up such that Salem 5, 160 Endicott, customers will be blocked from entering or exiting the bank site, question mark. 3, will the queue to exit at the signalized intersection back up such that the retail center customers will be impeded or prohibited from exiting the shopping center parking lot, which will have a severe detrimental impact on those businesses, question mark. 4, is the eastbound exit lane queue, which provides only one car of stacking, adequate, question mark. The current eastbound exit lane is 4 vehicles in queue length, being reduced to 1 vehicle queue length. 5, will tractor trailers that must access 180 and 182 Endicott be able to make the necessary turning maneuvers to enter the site, exit the site, and maneuver to the loading dock at the rear of the retail center, question mark. 6, will emergency vehicles, including the town's largest ladder truck, be able to make the turning maneuvers required by the proposed layout, question mark. 7, 152 Endicott has a right-in, right-out access directly off Endicott Street now. Why is this not being utilized? Question mark. No evidence has been provided from Mass DOT that this right-in, right-out will not be allowed to continue. 8, a 4th leg of the Route 128 ramp signal should be considered. No evidence has been provided from Mass DOT that this is not allowed. In fact, such a 4th leg was permitted by Mass DOT on the other side of Route 128, entering into Mass General North. 9, does the proposed plan respect and provide for vehicular safety and access into and out of the properties utilizing the signalized intersection, question mark. 10, does this plan provide safe pedestrian access around the entire 152, 160, 180, 182 Endicott Street area, question mark. The use of the decades-old layout, which does not adequately align with the signalized intersection as it exists, must be very carefully reviewed and revised so that the proposed development does not very negatively impact the neighborhood generally and the abutting existing long-standing commercial tenants. Thank you for your consideration. Nancy A.S. McCann, Esquire.
Okay, so we've read that into the record as requested. I've opened this up. This is a public meeting. If there are any questions from the audience at this time, Mr. Bradstreet, if you could approach the microphone, thank you.
Again, Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Just 2 observations. You referred to parking as reserved parking. When you have guests in the room, they sometimes have guests. Are there going to be signs indicating, say, visitor parking as opposed to, they're going to, if someone's staying there, their car is parked, where are they going to park, or how are they going to park on this site? Signage, what have you. And the other thing was the snow removal. For this business site, an ugly 10-foot high snow mound, and we've seen it over the mall, it doesn't pick up just snow. It picks up everything. It looks ugly. I think 10 feet is too high for a pile of snow to gather. Again, for the businesses that are going to be located, I would think they would consider it unsightly and not acceptable. Just 2 of my observations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone else in the audience. Further questions from the board at this time? If I could ask staff, we do have a motion. If you could detail that regarding the peer review at this time.
Sure. So planning staff is of the opinion that at this time that it would be appropriate for a traffic peer review. Just to, for a third party to, review the access, the circulation, the impact on the existing traffic signal, and, a number of the kind of items, concerns that were brought up tonight. So we did solicit a number of interested parties to be for the peer review. We did receive a number of proposals. Staff reviewed the proposals. We do feel that it would be beneficial to move forward with one of them that was mentioned, from Howard Stein Hudson. All the proposals were given to the group. If I don't know if there are any other questions or comments related to that. Be happy to.
I think we may. Let me ask the attorney for the applicant, if you would, sir. Obviously, we just read into the record Attorney McCann's letter. You're just, I'm assuming, hearing that now, and
Yes.
assuming that for us, obviously, we want the parties to cooperate. We want the site to get developed. I think you've laid out an excellent plan, and there's a lot of thought and a lot of effort into it. But we don't want to be part of, a lawsuit, if you will. So we want to make sure that the parties can coexist and come up with a good plan. So what town staff is recommending that there be an outside peer review, a third-party peer review to assist with that and kind of ameliorate the current concerns. And I guess, first of all, do you have a comment on that? And secondly, would the applicant be amenable to that?
Pete and Greg, we okay with that? And Jeff? Yes. There are, hopefully we can reach consensus. That certainly would be our goal as well. I would note, having been out on the site and walked around, photographed, et cetera, that there are constraints over on that site, with a lot going on with McDonald's and the plaza and so forth, and some of that circulation, those issues are indigenous to that site. So hopefully there'll be fairness and reasonableness, and to your point, Mr. Chairman, that maybe the reviewer can serve as a conciliator to any of the issues, and hopefully we can come up with something that works for everyone. But I think that looking at 180, it is a site also that had, when you can see the layout, some of the monuments and things that are into the 1972 layout as well, which obviously the town and we have a right to use as a public way. So hopefully everything will be addressed.
Okay, so you're willing to work with the applicant and address or reopen communication, if you will, and I guess we want to try to get a clear kind of timetable.
Yeah, I talked with Attorney McCann yesterday. I'm new to the matter, but
Okay.
I did say, I'm not an attorney that gets in the way. I like to have the professionals in the respective disciplines talk directly. That the engineers should talk with the engineers, and we have one of the most capable teams that I've worked on hundreds of projects, and Jeff and Greg and Pete are tremendous professionals, and obviously Bob Clark. So we're ready, willing, and able to work in a reasonable manner. And when you get down to the details of whether you can do every single thing, just try to come up with a reasonable consensus. And like to your point, maybe the peer review would be instrumental in that as well.
So from a timing standpoint, she talks about a September meeting. I know we've got, I believe, 2 meetings in August.
Well, we could talk about, there's a meeting on August 1st that is more town meeting, zoning amendment related. Right now, as we speak, there is a regularly scheduled meeting for August 22nd, but in speaking with a couple members of the board, that they won't be able to attend. It might be beneficial and appropriate to have that regularly scheduled meeting on a different evening, maybe on August 29th, potentially. I wasn't sure. I also just, received this letter this evening also.
So I guess, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but as far as the preferred peer review that the staff would like us to vote on.
Sure.
Are they able to jump on this essentially immediately so that they could put something out in the next 6 to 7 to 8 weeks?
Yeah, I
That
think,
everyone can review before a meeting?
yes.
'Cause it
I-
seems
I-
like a quick timetable.
Yes. I believe in that particular one, although I reviewed several, that there would likely be something within 3 weeks. We could probably get something within 3 weeks. So that August 22nd is probably, I wouldn't really feel comfortable with, but potentially, August 29th or.
Well, I mean,
September.
Attorney McCann's saying September. I just want to make sure that they can get the work done fast enough so that both parties can review it in time.
Right.
And then town staff as well. I don't want to, obviously you want to move forward.
Yep.
Everyone wants to move forward. I just want to see is there enough time? What's realistic for a timetable?
Yeah, because 3 weeks from today is August 15th.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Is there the submission deadline, Josh, for the September meeting would be what date?
There's no submission deadline.
Okay.
Just one kind of, while we're talking scheduling, for site plan review, there was a 60-day window that we have to make a decision by.
Right.
So anything past August 14th, the applicant team would have to agree
letter
to
of-
extend
yeah.
that date.
Yeah.
So just for context, if we're talking about scheduling.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay.
So what actual date was a reasonable date to extend the next hearing on this is my question, so that when we vote on this, that we're all comfortable.
Right.
We're going to have to come up with an extension.
Right.
It's reasonable.
Right.
And typically we meet the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. So given that, if this is going to be done in the next, say, month, and then handed to each side in the town, are we talking the first meeting of September, which would be the second Tuesday of the month, as a goal,
12th.
which is the 12th?
That seems right. Yeah, that seems right.
Yeah, a number of other things they have to do too.
I would, yeah. If the development, I wanted to, obviously ensure that the development team was. I was trying to facilitate this conversation. I knew this conversation was going to happen, so in my mind, anywhere between that August 29 and September 12th. I'm not sure how accommodating, we want it to be. We do only need 48 hours to, post a meeting, but just for informational
Yeah, I mean,
purposes.
typically we would extend to, say, on or before, say, September 12th with an action date by September 15th
Exact.
or something like that. And that would give us some flexibility if we are going to extend, perhaps move the meeting to August 29th. If we got lucky and we were able to do it then, that would help you guys out, to get if that was able to be done. And then our next normally scheduled meeting would be the 12th. Does that work for the board? I mean, does anyone have vacation plans the end of August that may not be here?
On the 12th, I will be in Boulder.
Oh, the 12th of September? How's the reception over there?
I don't know. What is that, 2 hours?
It's 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be on a work trip.
I'm checking real quick.
So we have one member who's not going to be here on the 12th. He's out of the country.
Out of the state.
Did you say?
Boulder.
Oh, I thought you
Boulder,
said
Colorado.
Bulgaria.
No, not
Boulder.
Boulder.
I'm sorry.
Boulder.
That's a little better.
I'm good on the 12th, September.
12?
Yeah. If all parties seem like September 12th would give enough time, but I wanted to check with the
Well,
development.
we may only have 4 board members out of 5.
So I was going to ask what you need for,
Yeah,
So you got here.
No, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be
Site
back
plan
on the
review.
22nd.
If-
Majority.
if
Or August 29th.
Okay. Or August 29th, yeah.
Or-
August 29th is going to be too early. I mean, it realistically, if it takes a peer review consultant 3 weeks, we'd like a couple of weeks to,
Okay.
if there's something.
No, I'm just trying to work it out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, but I'm just trying, I just know August, that's pushing it. And then
Yeah.
we're also on a parallel course, we're doing Conservation Commission. The peer review consultant, he has 2 or 3 more weeks from, what they told us. So, they needed 4 weeks. So I'd like to wrap a bow around it September 12th. That would be great if we came back once.
Yeah, the only issue on that is one of our members will not be here. He's going to be out of state.
So you need 3 out of 4 votes, is that it?
Yeah, you would need 3 out of 4 instead of 3 out of 5. So, I mean,
That would be, yeah, right,
But under the Mullen rule, he could
right.
review the tape anyway, right?
he could if it goes beyond that meeting.
Right,
If it doesn't get voted on at that meeting,
Otherwise,
he could,
sure.
he could review the tape and be able to vote at the next meeting, yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Hopefully, the 12th, we're in good shape. We'll see.
So do you want to say the 12th, and obviously it could be continued, but for purposes of an extension before we close not close the public, before, we should probably do the extension now before we do the other motion.
Yeah, I mean, at least if you could verbally let us know, I guess we could talk about a date verbally, and then in writing, if you could provide in writing by tomorrow, like what we decide. So, right, if we were going to talk about September 12th as our next meeting, it might make sense to, if there was a decision, give staff a couple days to do the decision. So maybe if we could extend that,
So
the
Lou,
action
you could
date
make
from August 14th to like
September
September
15th?
something of that nature, right?
Typically, we'll do it to the Friday, so
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
if you
right.
can make a motion on that, Lou, for an extension, unless there's any other further discussion? Hearing none.
I'd be making the motion, or that's the,
I'm going to have you make the motion, and then we'll vote on it to extend to August 12th
Okay.
meeting
Well-
with an action date of the 15th.
Maybe we should do that, the extension for them first, before a motion, what we're going to continue this to. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I can send, if the chair and the board
Yeah.
want, I can email to Josh
Right.
tomorrow morning.
Exactly.
A letter that says that we agree to an extension from August 14th to September 12th with a decision date of September 15th. I think that's what's
Well-
been talked about, right?
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Will that work?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like decision on September 4th. I would just say like an action deadline,
Action date is,
Okay, right.
to September 15th, 2023. Yeah,
so let's make,
that should suffice, but I don't know.
that
if-
should suffice, so
Yeah.
we don't need, but we need to,
We don't, the board, it's kind of like their request.
okay,
It's not like we're not voting on it because
okay.
they have to make the request, that, because
So
it's
we
their
don't have to move the
decision.
hearing?
So, but we're going to accept the continuance, or,
Well, we'll have to make it, we'll have to make a
Extension.
continuance that we're going to continue this item to September
so
12th.
we can move to continue to.
Yeah.
But before I get to that
Yes,
motion, I want to
right.
do the other motion,
Which was,
the peer review.
yes,
So let's
Good.
do that first.
yes.
So if I could have Lou make that motion. Do you see that motion, Lou?
I do.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. So motion, Town of Danvers Planning Board regarding 152 Endicott Street, peer review of traffic report. The planning board votes to move forward with Howard Stein Hudson, HSH, to review the traffic report submitted for the proposed development project at 152 Endicott Street under MGL Chapter 53G, outside consultants.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, and then we have a second motion.
This would be a motion to continue the, to continue the
Public meeting.
public meeting with respect to 152 Endicott Street, request for roadway improvement plan and site plan review pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaw submitted by JBM Danvers LLC for property in the Commercial 3 C3 zoning district. Applicant proposes to improve an existing way, Charlotte Court, to access a new retail commercial building and a new hotel. Assessors Map 63, Lot 14. Move to continue the public meeting to Tuesday, September 12th.
With an action date.
Oh, I'm sorry, with an action date of September 15th.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tori. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right.
Thank
We'll see
you.
We'll see you in September.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last item on the agenda is meeting minutes. We have the planning board meeting minutes of June 13th, 2023. Any discussion?
I think there was one in which you, was
I
that
was
the one,
absent,
you did not participate in that meeting?
Correct.
Have a great evening.
If I could get a motion to approve those minutes, I'm going to recuse because I was not present.
I move that we approve the minutes from June 13th, 2023.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And then next, we have the planning board minutes of June 27th, 2023. All right. And everyone was here for that. Discussion? Motion?
I'll move that we approve the minutes from June 27th, 2023.
Second?
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Further discussion just on our upcoming calendar, if you would, Josh. We do have, Lou and I are on that ad hoc committee for the historic study, and we're going to be meeting this Thursday on that, which is tied into the town meeting vote, dealing with the property on Summer Street. The upcoming meetings for our board?
Sure. So, coming up is a meeting on August 1st, which will be town meeting zoning amendment, particularly focused on the MBTA communities. We thought this would be an opportunity for the general public to review and/or have comments, answer questions, especially since fall, even though we don't want to, is sort of approaching. So I guess after what was just decided right now, it looks like that August 22nd meeting as we speak, we don't have a particular application that evening. I'm not sure if an administrative matter might come up between now and then, but as we speak, that might not happen on August 22nd. But
I
if
have a conflict on that day as well, so I would not be able to attend.
I as well.
Yeah, so that was, there might be potentially an administrative matter that has not been submitted at this moment, such as like an A&R or like something of that related to of that matter. But as we speak right now, there's nothing, so there's potential that that meeting does not occur. And then what we just kind of motioned, September 12th, the only item is the continuation of what we just discussed, so.
Okay, great.
And then, once we get to September, we'll be very likely late September, early October, opening the public hearings for the MBTA communities, items and any other, zoning amendments that we'll be proposing.
Okay.
So,
So we'll get town meeting member input, invite them to those meetings, and then we'll also have to prepare for the zoning articles going in front of FinCom and the selectmen, and then coming back to us.
mhm.
So that's kind of the process leading up to the town meeting
Which is-
in November.
November, probably 14 or 15, something like that. But I'm not sure if that's been definitive, but the date.
All right. Any questions on that from the board? All right. Just on a side note, since we're looking at the mall and since my office is down next to it, the pavement there is just atrocious. And I know that we've talked to Simon when the little grocery store came in there, and they did a minor patches. It's a perfect time of year to address that. It's like a war zone, and it's July. So we really need to talk to them. In addition, Simon, I believe, adopted the island out front on Endicott Street, which is 4-foot tall weeds. So I didn't want to put it on the new applicant, but I mean, if people aren't going to maintain it, I think maybe Kelly's did it at one point, and maybe Simon did it at one point, we should just mow it. It's ridiculous. This is your entryway into a large retail establishment, and you've got 4-foot tall weeds, and it looks awful. So if you would think Simon would step up and want to make the entryway look nice, but they don't seem to care about that or the pavement, which I don't want to be talking about this in December and January again, with people getting, townspeople extremely upset, thinking it's a town roadway, which it is not. So if you could, and I know you have a process with town residents and how they, put in complaints with staff, but I think you're hearing it from me. If we could relay that really needs to be addressed.
Okay.
I think Lou has a comment as well.
Just with respect to that, I mean, didn't my memory serve me when we did the site plan approval for Aldi? Didn't we include as a condition that they rehabilitate the area, that Simon rehabilitate the area around there?
Yeah,
That's also my recollection.
at the time,
Yeah. Can we go back in terms of that you have not fulfilled your obligation under that?
at the time they did do some work, to be honest. They did, and they sent like photographs and everything. They did actually do work, but obviously there's been a decent amount of time since like 2001.
The patches aren't doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's large areas.
Could we
and
see what
just riding
I can
around
certainly
it.
reach out to them through some of these projects. I've made some contacts with them. I can certainly reach out to them and see,
Could
what.
we also see what the language was in the condition? I'm not
Yeah.
sure how it was drafted.
Sure. There
Because
definitely was.
If it called for a little more than, if it called for something a little more extensive and what they did was more just on the minimal, then.
I believe at the time, how it was written and what they did was consistent, to be honest. But I can look at that. Yes.
I mean, they are finally completing that storage facility, which again requires.
in the rear there.
Yeah, which requires, heavy trucks and so on, but other than that, there isn't any other construction going on there, so, and that should be mostly just brickwork now. I don't think there's gonna be a ton of larger,
The condition says, condition of meeting with the town to fill potholes and maintain roadways prior to December 1st, 2021.
Oh,
well, the potholes are back.
That's sort of the right. Don't have a lot of leverage with that one, but
Well,
like I said, I could certainly bring this up. I know.
we have zoning enforcement officer, and that's part of the,
Yep.
this is a big concern. It's been brought up several times to the board, and I think it's a safety issue, and, Anything else from the board? Motion to adjourn?
so moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.